If you find yourself being motivated to continuously improve and be disciplined, but after a couple of days you go back to your old self, watch this video. This is the work relapse loop. It captures what exactly happens from you to go to work mode to scroll mode, from scroll mode to work mode. Your brain loves dopamine and it evaluates all of your decisions based on how much dopamine it brings. Initially, when you scroll or start working, you are going to be rewarded for the action, which in turn brings more desire for that action. This desire creates more action, which creates more reward, until at one point it stops being fun anymore. If you're working, you're gonna have those boring hours. To sum it up, you start being disciplined or start scrolling simply because the other task isn't as fun anymore. And if you're scrolling, the reality of being a failure is going to kick in. And so the rest of the video will be all about all the things you can do to stay longer in the work mode and speed up the scrolling mode so that you go back to work. Starting with the first one. One of the reasons why you relapse is simply because you don't enjoy work. Again, your brain loves dopamine, so it'll pick the highest dopamine giving task. And so a part of preventing yourself from relapse and staying in the work mode is to continue enjoying what you're doing. Otherwise, you're not going to stay in this loop and you're going to find yourself going back to scrolling. Here are all the tips for enjoying work. Firstly, focusing on continuous improvement. That's finding how you can do things better and acting on them. One of the ways to get dopamine is through novelty. Finding these little improvements that can improve your performance gives you that novelty, which gives you the dopamine reward that creates the desire to continue working hard. It's also pretty much the second point summed up as well, where you just have some time in the day to reflect and find more improvements. You can also add a few rewards. That's these here. I've noted some things down to do them correctly. Another great trick you can do is to create some levels or some KPIs, key indicators that will show you that you are progressing. I'm building an app that incorporates a lot of these ideas. On day one, back onto the discipline journey, and you're feeling that motivation again, you should not spend all your time working. You should use that initial motivation to prepare for the inevitable drop when your dopamine levels go to the rock bottom. All of these guys. And this. And this. I'll now go more in depth on all of these tasks. First and most important is learning from all of your failures and realizing why you relapsed in the first place. So that can be something like talking to AI, noting down all of your triggers, what caused you to go back into gaming in the first place. Also work on your resolve. You would have most likely found yourself having no reason to give yourself for why you should keep working during your relapse. This is the in-depth resolve chart. I have a video breaking this entire chart down. I have put the link below in the description. You should also work on setting up strong systems like app blockers and long passwords to make it harder for you to scroll. So things like Beeminder, uninstalling the app, and being accountable with one of your friends. You should also plan next week to gain a little bit of clarity on all of the tasks that you need to do. The reason why you go back to scrolling is genuinely because of too much stress. You spend all of your energy trying to work when you don't want to. It's a handful of other things as well, but you can mainly lower the stress and pain of working hard by staying healthy and taking breaks. This is why just grinding and forcing yourself to work hard will almost always not work. After a couple of days, you will most likely go back to your phone. When you take breaks, I recommend you reflect and potentially find improvements. You should also do your chores in the meantime, things that you have to get done anyway. These can be used as great energy recoveries as they don't require that much mental energy or physical energy to do. They're generally much easier than getting the work done. You should also pay attention to when you're about to go back to scrolling. Now, I have made an entire chart covering these energy levels and telling when you should be focusing on not scrolling rather than getting the work done. That's this point here. Aside from that, there is also the 5-minute rule, where you try doing the work for 5 minutes, see how it goes, If you don't like it, you go off to do some chore, recover a little bit of energy, try again until eventually you find that you're actually enjoying your work. Otherwise, you might end up spending all your energy and going back to scrolling and gaming. Going a bit more in depth, you should also learn to be patient. If you really do not feel like working, then you should learn to back off a little bit, learn to reset your energy, do something else like I was talking here. And overall, in the beginning, do not force yourself to work. Otherwise, your stress and pain can quickly stack up and you can go back to scrolling. Later on, of course, as you get used to doing hard work, you can push past this pain. It's the same with adapting your workload. At the end of your day, if you see you're in these two energy levels, shift your workload to be less, as you might be seeing a bit of a dip in your motivation and your ability to work hard. If you do recognize the dip, you can also just reset your energy, which goes to my next point. If you don't feel like working and you're feeling low energy, then you should do something about it. One of the great ways is to simply reset your energy. One of these is to simply reread your resolve. That's why you're doing hard work in the first place. That's pretty much all of this. You can also exercise, go for a walk. That'll increase your energy up a little bit. And while you're exercising, going for a walk, or even doing a chore, you've got some time to think, and you can use a bit of that thinking time to find out exactly how you're going to do the next task. Some of the other things you can do is just have a short 20-30 minute nap. That'll help reset your energy and your mood a bit. Even 10 minutes can work as well. Taking a shower is also good. And as I've mentioned before, reflecting can really help reset your energy. It can help you find improvements, which will give you dopamine from the novelty, and that'll give you extra energy to work harder. All of these things will help you reset your energy and come back stronger. One of the simplest ways to prevent yourself from gaming and scrolling during a motivation dip is to make sure you don't ever have these breaking points that make you go, screw it, I'm off to go scroll. That's done by setting up and keeping systems that help you resist your desires and make work easier. One of the common traps that lead to scrolling and gaming later on is arrogance and complacency. That's believing that you are above scrolling and gaming now and that you're never gonna relapse, which even in the later days is simply not true. So make sure that even in the later days, you keep the things that have kept you from scrolling in the first place. Now, the next point a lot of people do tend to miss, and that's learning to cut relapse early. A lot of beginners in discipline think that their first goal is to quit social media forever, which is not the case. Because in reality, even the most elite performers, the most disciplined people can find themselves scrolling, especially if they need to use YouTube or other social media platforms for work. The trick is to learn to cut relapse early and set up small, clear relapse rituals for you to get back on track. During that time of scrolling, you'll of course be confused. That's why it's important to have the exact back on track ritual noted down and completely internalized. Internalized just means you keep it in your head. In your back on track ritual, you should have some clear instructions, and those clear instructions should include having your desire or purpose statement. Both of these are the clear reason why you're doing this in the first place. In fact, it can just remind you of any part of the resolve statement. Aside from that, you can also put a few easy tasks like doing a couple of push-ups or just going on a very short walk. As long as you keep in mind the 2-minute rule, that the task should only take 2 minutes max. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it when you're scrolling. So make sure to create some KPIs to track how long you relapse and how fast you get back on track. Going back on the next point, speeding up atrophy, that is making sure that this entire system speeds up and that the novelty fades and the initial feel-good loop doesn't last as long. One of the ways to lengthen the amount that you work is to shorten the amount that you scroll. And that is reducing the time for when scrolling feels good and speeding up when you'd rather get back to work. That's what this entire section is all about. All three of these include some kind of setup reminders to remind you that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So that's notification spam, creating alarms or scheduled reminders reminding you of the tasks you should be doing, and that is putting your purpose statement, i.e. why you're working hard in the first place, in front of you through like a homepage, putting it in the background, a sticky note, in your room, whatever, as long as you can get it right in your face. Internalizing it can also really help. If you find yourself going from work back to scrolling or gaming, keeping yourself busy is another great strategy to prevent scrolling and gaming. If there's a lot of necessary tasks that you need to do, you won't have the time to scroll, and you'll create the anxiety and speed up the entire process behind going from relapse to back to work. Going a bit more in depth into it, you can create an ambitious goal. That's this right here. And as I've noted it down, it should also genuinely excite you and should be something that you genuinely want to achieve. It should be something that's doable, but would require all of your effort. You can also create necessary tasks by creating commitments with others. If you haven't already, make sure to get a like-minded, active friend. You can maybe get a competition going, or create punishments for if you go back to scrolling or gaming. These are just some of the other ideas, but you can also volunteer, you can work, you can join clubs, whatever forces you to be busy. Scheduling tasks also helps a little bit with it as well. A small trick to prevent relapsing and going back to gaming and scrolling is to scale punishment with relapse. So that would be 1 push-up every 1 minute of social media. And that not only encourages you to not relapse, but it also helps cut relapse early, as every minute counts. It'll amplify the pain and stress and cause you to get back to work much quicker. I've put an example here, but you can choose whatever works for you. Another way to amplify pain and stress is through hourly messaging to an accountability partner. So this would very quickly alert them that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, and realizing that with every hour that passes, you're just going to get worse and worse. You're going to have a worse and worse impression from your accountability partner. Does help you amplify the pain and stress and causes you to get back to work sooner. If you find yourself scrolling or gaming, you should also create these triggers. These are things that give you a second to pause and think and realize that this is not what you're supposed to be doing, and you go back to work. Normally, these are already created throughout the day with like chores or responsibilities, but I've listed some extras here. You can block the app only at certain times. You can use apps like OneSec to create delay. You can create a router schedule that only works for you 90% of the hour. So every hour it goes off for 5 minutes. And even better, you can store the passwords to change it to a friend so that you never really bother to change it, but it keeps these triggers going, and every hour you will have to pause and think what the hell you're doing. Doing this and all of the other tips, you'll find yourself being a lot more disciplined. That's all for this guide. If you've got any feedback, make sure to let me know by commenting it down below, and have a good day. Hey, thank you so much for watching the video. If you have any questions, ask them down in the comments and I'll reply to as many as I can. I'm also building a powerful discipline app as well as a Discord server of people who are trying to improve on themselves. You can find out more by clicking the link below.